I'm John Nixon from Eagle Lake Woodworking. Welcome to part 4 of the video series on how I constructed this arts and crafts style bed. This video focuses on the legs. Some of the features of the legs include through mortises, quarter sawn white oak grain displayed on the exposed side of the legs, and I mortise to receive the hardware for the bed rails. The top of the posts have a pyramid detail, and the bottom of the post gets chamfered. Now, accurately sizing the mortises to fit the tenons on the already assembled panel sections could be a real challenge. There's 2 mortises on the footboard posts and there's 3 mortises on the headboard posts. I'll show you a method for making these mortises that's foolproof. It doesn't require a mortising machine or a router. It's really simple. Let me show you how it's made. So here's how I made the bed post without mortising. I have a piece of 3/4 inch material on both sides of the tenon, and then I've planed down this center piece to be the exact same thickness as the tenon. And I'll cut 3 sections, 1 for each area surrounding the tenon, and then glue all 3 together. So the piece that makes up the center of the leg needs to be the same thickness as the tenon. So I'm starting with a piece of 3/4 inch stock, and I need to bring it down a 1/2 inch. Rather than just plane off this material and waste it, I'm going to cut off a thin slice on the bandsaw and make some shop-made veneer that will cover the glue line side of the leg, and that way we'll get quarter sawn white oak grain on all 4 sides. So I've set the bandsaw fence about an 1/8 inch away from the blade, and I'll cut off a thin slice that we can use for veneer, and the remaining piece we'll bring to the same thickness as the tenon and use it as the center piece. Cutting the filler pieces for in between the tenons really isn't complicated at all. In fact, the only one that needs to be accurately measured is the one that goes between the 2 tenons. The others on the outside can be left long because we're going to trim the legs to final length afterwards. So I'll just square up one end and then cut it to length at 16 5/8 inches. And I'm going to leave it a hair longer so I can sneak up on the width and trim it down until it fits exactly between those 2 tenons. So my first cut was just a little bit long. I'll go back and trim a tiny bit off until it fits perfectly in between the 2 tenons. There we go. That's the kind of fit we're looking for. To make sure I don't get any glue on the tenon when I build up this leg around the tenons, I'm going to tape them off with clear packing tape. I'm also going to tape along the frame and panel section to protect that from any glue as well. The first step in the glue up is to clamp on the bottom board to the tenons. Next, I'm going to glue in that center piece and both end pieces. I'm going to clamp them temporarily and secure them with a brad, and then glue on the top piece and clamp it all together. With the center filler pieces in place, I can glue on the final top piece and clamp the whole thing together. After I get that clamped up, I can remove it from the panel assembly just to make sure that it doesn't dry. You can also take this opportunity to clean out any glue that may have squeezed out inside the mortise. Okay, the procedure for the headboard is exactly the same as the footboard, but we have one other cross member to deal with. There's a lower cross rail on the headboard, and it has a tenon as well. So I've cut all the pieces to fit in between the tenons, and I'll do the same procedure as before, which is glue them in place, tack them in, and then clamp the other board on top. This one's a little trickier because it wants to jump off from the weight of that last cross rail, so got to kind of hold it in place while I get some clamps on it. You can see how that closes up nicely right around the tenon. It makes a great through mortise and tenon joint. With the glue-ups for the legs dry, there's a few more steps we have to finish off the legs. Now I purposely left this a little bit wider than I needed. So I'm going to joint this face that goes against the panel assembly and then plane it down to the right thickness before I apply the veneer piece on the outside edge. And this will give quarter sawn white oak grain on the three sides that are exposed on the leg. Here at the joiner, I'll clean up this inside edge, and then we'll move over to the planer and plane it to 2 inches. With the jointed face down on the planer bed, I'll plane the opposite face so the thickness of the leg is just under 2 inches. This will account for the veneer that we're going to apply so that the finished leg is 2 inches. There's not really anything tricky about applying the veneer. We just need a thin layer of yellow glue and even clamping pressure. A couple of pieces of masking tape hold it in place so it doesn't shift around when we apply clamping pressure. Well, that does it for this part of the video, but I invite you to check out the all-new Eagle Lake Woodworking to see the rest of the videos in this series and videos on other woodworking topics.